You don't know why, but this person never really leaves your heart, despite the distance, despite the silences, despite the prayers to forget. What if it wasn't just an emotional attachment? What if it was a silent reminder from Allah Himself? Because sometimes it's not over. Sometimes Allah says, I'm not finished with you. I'm bringing you back, together. What you're about to hear could completely change your perspective on what you're experiencing right now. Stay until the end. You'll understand why nothing that happened to you was by chance. What? You thought it was over? You thought it was over. Not just this relationship. Not just this stage. Everything. You began to look at your own life as a spiritual accident. You said to yourself, I must have sinned too much. Allah has moved away. He has closed the door on me. But listen carefully. There is a very special moment in the life of a soul. That moment when everything seems to fall silent. When you continue to make supplications, but without response. When you look at the sky, but you no longer feel anything. When you stop crying, not because you feel better, but because you are empty. You don't understand why you lose everything. Why even the things you protected with prayer crumble. Why those you thought were meant for become strangers. And why do you carry a pain that no one sees? But what if it wasn't abandonment? What if what you're experiencing wasn't rejection, but a divine withdrawal, not to punish you, but to reorient you? Somewhere you would never have gone on your own. Because sometimes you have to remove everything that makes noise so that the soul can finally hear. Have you ever wondered why you feel this emptiness, even after all your attempts to rebuild yourself? It's not because you failed. It's because you were called back. And Allah's reminders don't always look like flashes of light. Sometimes they take the form of a slow, silent collapse. A collapse that doesn't destroy, but cleanses. You may no longer recognize your reflection today, but you're not the one who's lost. It's the old you that's dying, the one who thought he knew, the one who planned everything, the one who confused attachment with destiny. And while you panic, blame yourself, empty yourself, something invisible is working within you. Do you know what it is? It's the remodeling of your soul. There are souls that Allah never allows to completely die. Even if they move away, even if they cling to what destroys them, even if they remain silent in their pain. Do you think you've been forgotten? But how can you be forgotten by the one who hears your heart even before your mouth utters a prayer? Perhaps this pause you're experiencing, this brutal silence, this incomprehensible distance, is not a wall, but a barrier against what harmed you. And while you ask for a return, Allah is preparing a return greater than you can imagine. But for that, it was first necessary to break the old you. It was necessary for you to feel this emptiness deep within your being. Not to harm yourself, but so that, when He fills you again, you will finally know where true peace comes from. Because there are people whom Allah awakens with blessings, but He chooses others to awaken them with losses. And these souls are often the ones He loves to purify the most. So maybe you are one of them. Perhaps if you are listening to this video today, it is not by chance. It is not just another scroll on your phone. It is an echo that your soul recognizes. Because she heard it before you heard it with your ears. What if what you're experiencing wasn't an ending, but a sacred prologue? There is wisdom in this emptiness, a meaning in this silence. But to see it, you must first stop running. I learned to listen to what the soul whispers when everything around it goes silent. 2. The invisible thread. Imagine two people, not perfect, not ready, but marked, each in their own way, by an encounter that changed something inside them. Perhaps they weren't meant to stay. But they never really left either. Time passed. Silences filled the spaces that words could no longer repair. Prayers were said in the shadows, without the other knowing. And yet, something deep, invisible, irreducible, remained there. Like a thread that can't be seen, that can't be heard, but that we feel in specific moments. In the evening, when the world falls silent, or in a dream, or in an unknown voice that says a sentence that brings you directly back to the other. The thread, you have no control over it. You can move away, change cities, change countries, change your life. But there is a bond that you yourself cannot sever, because it was never tied by you. It is Allah who holds it. And as long as He doesn't release it, no matter the detour, the other faces, the years, the reminder will return. You know, there are people you can't forget. Not because you're weak, not because you're obsessed, but because there's still a lesson to be learned with them. Or perhaps a destiny to live. Later. But not now. Not in this state. Not with these wounds still open. So Allah distanced this. Not out of punishment, but out of wisdom. And while you think it's over, He's working on you, on your hearts, on your souls, on everything you were unable to manage together at that moment. Because a love that comes too soon can sometimes destroy what it's meant to build. And Allah doesn't want to give you something you'll distort. He wants to prepare you to deserve it. So sometimes you find yourself walking alone, or making choices without that person, healing without them, growing or falling understandings alone. But all this time you feel that something inside you remains focused on that place, that suspended moment when your paths crossed. That name you can't completely erase. That look you seek, even unconsciously, in others. What is that? It's a subtle reminder. A reminder that this bond, if it was drawn by Allah, does not depend on your effort nor on your forgetfulness. You can try to convince yourself it's over. You can tell everyone it's in the past. You may even believe you've erased it, but the heart, it knows invisible truths. And it knows when a thread hasn't been cut. It feels it. Not through memories, but through a silent call that we can never silence. Because when Allah decides to put two pieces back together, He doesn't do it according to human clocks. He does it according to His eternal wisdom. And that day, you may not be ready. You won't expect it. But you will know. You will recognize that moment, that look, that sudden peace that you won't be able to explain. And your whole heart will tell you, this is not a coincidence. This is a reminder. Because when Allah says, it is not over, no force on this earth can deny it. 3. The ruins of a heart. You begged in the dark, not just once. You repeated the same words 1,000 times, until you no longer said them out loud. You looked at your ceiling, your floor, your hands, hoping for an answer from above. And you said, Ya Allah, why this pain? But you know, there is a pain that doctors cannot cure, a pain that cannot be seen on an X-ray. It is the pain of waiting, of longing, of spiritual incomprehension. It is the pain felt by those who have loved sincerely and who have been torn away by decree. You thought it was the wrong person. Then you believed that maybe you were the problem. And finally, you looked at the sky, tired, exhausted, thinking that you had been abandoned. But Allah does not abandon. He rebuilds. Only before rebuilding, He destroys illusions. The attachments that took up too much space in your heart. The plans you had made without Him. the relationships you had sanctified without purifying them. And sometimes, this destruction hurts. Not because Allah wants to make you suffer, but because you had clung to what had not yet been prepared. You thought it was a theft, that life had snatched someone from you. But what if it wasn't a theft? What if it was a withdrawal for inner renewal? Look at yourself. You are no longer the same person. You pray differently now. You no longer ask, bring this person back to me. You say, Ma, make me someone ready. Oh Allah, if it is for me. And that's already a revolution. You had to fall to your lowest point to understand that it wasn't the other person who needed to change, but you. And while you struggled with your lack, Allah was cleansing your heart. Not so that you would remain alone, not to punish you for what you've done wrong, but so that, if one day He decides to bring you together again, it would be in truth, not in illusion. It would be with Him at the center, not your desires in control. It would be solid, pure, guided. Have you ever wondered why He let you taste something so beautiful, only to then take it away? It wasn't cruelty. It was a call to alignment. Because you can't build a house on unstable foundations. And your heart, it's the first brick. Sometimes, what you call a loss is actually an act of violent mercy. Yes, violent. Because Allah doesn't wait for your consent to tear you away from what poisons you. He does it, even if it makes you scream, even if you bleed, even if you don't understand. Yet, and in this chaos, He plants a seed of light, tiny, almost invisible at first. But one day, you will feel something inside you has changed. A calm you didn't know, a maturity you don't recognize, a lucidity that almost frightens you. That day, you will understand that you were not abandoned. You were realigned. But for that to happen, your heart had to be broken. Not to remain in ruins, but to be rebuilt, purer, deeper, more stable. Because one day, perhaps, when Allah judges that you are two hearts ready, not to belong to each other, but to put Him at the center, He will send you back to each other. But this time, it will no longer be to fill a void. 4. Like rain after drought. Do you know what it's like? An earth scorched by the silence of the sky? It cracks slowly. It breaks. Not suddenly, but silently. Day after day. And yet, it doesn't scream. It waits. That's what the heart is sometimes. A desert without rain. Nothing grows anymore. Memories are like dead plants that we look at and say, once, here, there was life. But the earth has never stopped hoping, even cracked, even abandoned. It retains within it that strange, almost naive disposition, as if something could still fall from the sky, something that changes everything. And one day, the rain comes. Not a storm, not a brutal thunderstorm. No, a slow rain, silent, but determined. A rain that makes no noise, but awakens long-buried seeds. It doesn't come to repair. It comes to reactivate. And everything that seemed dead begins to breathe again. It's the same for you. You've known dry seasons, empty days, unanswered prayers. Silence is so heavy that even your soul seemed tired of believing. You've watched chapters close without explanation. People leave without saying goodbye. You've asked yourself, Am I slowly fading away? But Allah doesn't let the desert last forever. He knows the exact moment when the rain must fall. And this rain, sometimes, isn't a word. It isn't a spectacular miracle. It's an encounter, a look, a message that falls one evening, a memory that returns with unexpected sweetness, a return you no longer expected, and suddenly, your heart, which you thought would dry up forever, begins to beat differently. Not like before, not in confusion, nor in desperate attachment, but in a new inner light, calmer, more lucid, closer to Allah. Because the rain isn't there to fulfill desires. It's there to reveal what had always been there, beneath the dust of your trials, beneath the sand of your human expectations. And this rain, it falls when Allah decides. Not when you ask for it, not when you think you deserve it, but when your heart is finally ready to receive it. Look around you. Perhaps it's already falling, gently, silently, in a way that only an awakened heart can recognize. And you, do you smell the scent of wet earth? Do you feel what your soul feels, without even being able to explain it? Because sometimes, the sign of a return simply resembles a drop of rain on a desert that has waited too long. But everything begins with a single drop, and it is often Allah Himself who chooses when to make it fall.
5. Why now? Why now? Why now? When you had turned the page, or at least tried? Why now? When you had buried hope, laid flowers, closed the grave? Why now? When you had finally accepted? When you had told your heart, it's over? Allah has other plans. And now, it all comes back. The presence, the memory, a message, an encounter, a coincidence, too precise to be chance. Why now? Do you want the truth? Because you're never the one who chooses the moment. Because destiny doesn't obey your logic. It obeys a science that you don't see. You had to go through this void. You had to lose yourself a little for your return to have meaning. You had to fall. You had to doubt. Let you cry out to Allah alone, without intermediaries, without distractions, without escape. Because as long as your ego speaks, Allah does not whisper, and sometimes He just waited for you to fall silent internally, for your pride to be exhausted, for your calculations to fail, for your mind to surrender. And there, in this silence, in this terrain finally cleared of your control, He says to you, now, not before, not while you run, but now that you walk more slowly, now that you listen, now that you are broken enough to be molded. You know, sometimes Allah doesn't deprive you. He prepares you, and you call it absence, you call it pain, but in truth, it's inner formation. Because there are hearts that cannot receive what they ask for, as long as they remain in the state in which they asked for it. And you've changed a lot. You're no longer the person you were when you said, Ya Allah, I want this person. You don't see it. But Allah, He sees what this pain has taken from you and what it has left you with. And perhaps this return, this confusing timing, isn't there to disturb you, but to confirm that you're ready, not perfect, but ready. Ready to love differently. Ready to no longer repeat the old patterns. Ready to welcome this connection with more tawakkul and less attachment.
You think you've waited a long time, but you don't know what the other person has been through. You don't know how Allah prepared it too in His own silence. He may have shaped you far from the other, but only to one day bring you face to face again, in the light. And when it happens, it doesn't feel like an explosion. It feels like an inner peace that nothing can explain. A calming that comes neither from the other, nor from you, but from above. So why now? Because Allah doesn't work according to a calendar. He works according to the awakening of the soul. And perhaps right now, this is the moment when your soul is finally capable of receiving what your heart has always desired, but for the right reasons. And if Allah says, "I'm sending you back," no one, not even you, will be able to oppose it. 6. It's not a coincidence, it's a decree. You saw this message, just one scroll among others. You stopped, without really knowing why. But your heart knew. This person is coming back. It's not over. And then, something vibrated, as if someone was speaking to you without words. As if a sentence, invisible but powerful, was whispering to you, "It's not over." But listen to me carefully. It's not a coincidence. It's not a pretty sentence on a screen. It's not a burst of algorithmic nostalgia. It's a decree. Do you think you're moving forward by chance? No. Every detour, every distance, every silence was written. And every return, too. Not written by you, nor by this person, but by the one who created you, Allah, the only one who knows the secrets of your soul, the flaws of your heart, and the exact moment when you are ready. He saw you bend. He saw you resist. He saw you try to forget. But He never forgot you. He never looked away. Because this bond, if He willed it, it returns. And when He says, "Come back," nothing can stand in the way. Not distance, not doubt, not the past. It's not magic. It's not disguised romanticism. It's a return orchestrated by light. A return where souls recognize each other not only by their gaze, but by what they have become in their absence. More aligned, more anchored, closer to Allah. And this return is not simply a starting over. It's a continuing, but differently. Not in attachment, but in awareness. Not in lack, but in connection. Because when Allah separated you, it wasn't to destroy, it was to purify. And when He brings you back, it's not to fill a human void, it's to unite two hearts in His wisdom. You don't understand it yet. You just feel something strange, a peace mixed with tension, a sacred foreboding. It's normal. It's what happens when the invisible brushes against you, when the decree finally touches the surface of the visible, when destiny enters the scene, discreetly, but irresistibly. So no, it's not a coincidence. It's not a strange timing. It's not a coincidence that you, now, hear these words. It's a silent, yet powerful call to prepare yourself. Not to find someone again, but to reconnect with Allah's plan. Because when He decrees, even the walls you've built crumble, and even the paths you thought abandoned light up again. There are returns that humans cannot plan. There are connections that only divine decrees can reactivate. If your heart vibrated during this video, it may not be just because you're hoping, it may be because your soul recognizes a call to return, to repair yourself, to reconnect. What if Allah were preparing you for a return, but this time you were ready to welcome it as He wills? Subscribe so you don't miss any of these reminders that speak to the soul. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. And remember, when Allah says, "It is not over," it means a new page is about to be written.